Personality theories helps us identify what makes everyone so similar and so different at the same time. The theory of Gordon Allport, which is the psychology of the individual, emphasizes the uniqueness of every individual. But first, kilalanin muna natin kung sino si Gordon Allport. Ito siya. Gordon Allport was born on November 11, 1897 in Montezuma, Indiana, USA. His father was a physician while his mother was a teacher. Her mother was very religious, wherein siya yung nagturo kay Gordon to have virtues of clean language and right conduct. And he was the youngest child of four brothers. He was dependent and too young to be his brother's playmates. Yung mga early interest niya is about sa mga philosophical and religious questions o katulad yung mga words of gods, ganun, myths. Then, after that, he admitted to initially being uninspired and uncurious kasi wala siyang idea kung anong gusto niyang gawin sa next na kabanata ng kanyang buhay. He married a clinical psychologist whom he had met as a graduate student. Ito si Ada Lovkin-Gold. They had one child named Robert who became a pediatrician and thus sandwiched Albert between two generations of physicians. And Allport ranked second in a class of 100 high school graduating students. Kaya naman makikita natin na he was very smart at a very young age. Then he received his master's degree in 1921 and his doctorate degree in psychology in 1922 from Harvard University. He was elected as president of the American Psychological Association and received many awards including the American Psychological Foundation Gold Medal and also yung American Psychological Association Award for his distinguished scientific contribution. Sinulat nila yung libro na Personality, a Psychology Interpretation in 1937 with Leo Postman, as well as yung Reaction Study and Study of Values Pattern and Growth and Personality in 1961, and The Psychology of Rumor in 1947. Nagturo si Gordon Allport at Harvard University until his death, wherein ang ikinamatay niya ay lung cancer. Right.
So, before going further in our discussion, I would like to share kung paano nag-meet si Freud at saka si Gordon Allport. So, after returning to United States, Allport stayed in Vienna, Austria para i-visit yung brothers niya. And before visiting his brothers in Austria, nag-send siya ng letter kay Freud and Freud invited him to visit. Upon entering Freud's office, Allport stood there and saw Freud sitting patiently. Like, naghihintay si Freud kung anong sasabihin ni Allport sa kanya, what are they about to discuss. And then, Allport started his story of an episode wherein while his travel going to Vienna, he told Freud that he saw a little boy with the dirt phobia, that lahat doon nakikita ng bata doon sa mismong place na yan is like they're all dirty para sa kanya. And that child is convincing his mother to sit where it is clean, and he keeps telling his mother na hindi dapat siya makitabi sa maduming tao. While Allport was telling the story, Freud then said to Allport na, was that little boy you? And Allport was embarrassed because he he also sees himself dun sa bata, considering that Allport grew up in their house while his dad made it a small clinic wherein syempre pag clinic malinis dapat lahat, diba? So that's why he also felt guilty because he sees himself in the child. While they were discussing, Allport then from that incident with Freud, Allport then wanted to dive deep in psychology, in which it should focus on the conscious mind. Like motivation should also be included. So that's why Allport chose that path of study of psychology. So let's talk about Allport's trait theory. He emphasized the nature and evolution of personality traits. His theory is also called the psychology of individuals because it emphasizes a person's uniqueness. Allport was certain that motivation is always a contemporary process. So, sa trait ni Allport, it suggests that we have certain basic traits and we have its strength and intensity of those traits. Meaning, those kind of traits makes us different with each other. Next. An individual's current self-image is far more important than whatever he or she has been in the past. No central motive, even for abnormal personalities, is ever totally independent of the contemporary ego structure. So yun nga, dun sa theory ni Allport is talks about more on motivation, on how motivation influences our behavior. For example, intelligence, temperament, habits, skills, attitudes, and also traits. Let's go to the next. So what is the role of the conscious motivation? So, dito sa role of the conscious motivation, in summary, in simple explanation, motivation our motives change as we mature, and we are motivated by our impulses and our wants. But we are mostly motivated dun sa present na drives natin rather dun sa past events, and we are aware of it. Also, that motivation yung awareness natin dun sa motivation na yun, we should also meet we should also adjust our behavior para i-meet yung demands ng environment.
So, what are the characteristics of a healthy person? According to Allport, psychologically mature people are characterized by proactive behavior. That is, they not only react to external stimuli, but they are capable of consciously acting on their environment in new and innovative ways and causing their environment to react to them. In simpler terms, proactivity or proactive behavior, ito yung ability natin to do things in advance of an event to ensure na meron tayong control sa mga mangyayari. Yung mga proactive people is or are always looking ahead at future activities, projects, and events. Wherein yung opposite naman nito is yung reactivity or reactive behavior. Ito yung when we simply respond to events after na nang nangyari yung event na yun. So, yung parang opposite talaga siya ng proactive behavior. Again, yung proactive behavior causes the people to be very proactive, and because of that, we are capable of acting on our environment to cause the environment to react to us. In short, um, parang mas mafe-feel natin na secured yung future natin, yung life natin kapag we have this proactive behavior. Um, Mature personalities are more likely than disturbed ones to be motivated by conscious processes, which allow them to be more autonomous than unhealthy people who remain dominated by unconscious motives that spring from childhood experiences. Nabanggit niya kanina na yung sa theory ni Allport is more on sa futuristic siya or teleological than causal. And here are the um, 6 criteria wherein kailangan nating ma-meet para masabi na meron tayong mature personality. First is yung self-extension or extension of the sense of self. Ito yung, um, di ba, tayong mga people, we continually seek to identify with and participate outside interpersonal relationships natin. Um, ito yung parang may diverse effects ito sa relationship natin, involvement sa others. Yun, self-extension has diverse interests, specific enduring extensions of self. In short, ito yung involvement natin sa ibang tao. Next is yung warm human interaction or warm relating of self to others. Ito yung respects and appreciates the rights of others. For example, yung trust, empathy, genuineness, tolerance. Yun. Um, According to Allport naman, mature personalities are characterized by a reputation that they have the capacity to love others in an intimate and compassionate manner. Yun. So, yung third naman is yung self-acceptance or emotional security. Ito yung mga kind of situations na yung mga tao, they do not get overly upset. Get upset by the things that hindi umayon sa plano. Ayun, they do not dwell on minor irritations o hindi masyadong troubled sa mga naging, what do you call that again? Naging naging problema, yan, naging problema sa plano nila. More on nagiging positive sila and they do not dwell on the simple problems. Parang ito yung ito yung nag-accept ng frustrations natin and meron tayong optimistic point of view. Then, mature individuals accept themselves for what they are and they possess. And this is what Allport calls as emotional voice. Next is naman yung realistic perception. Ito yung mga kind of people na problem-oriented rather than self-centered. Psychologically healthy people possess a realistic perception of their environment. They do not live in a fantasy world or bend reality to fit their own wishes. Ayun. So, mga tao dito is tinitignan nila yung mga situation in real life in an objective manner and solves the practical problems of everyday living. Fifth naman is yung self-objectification or insight and humor. Yung mature people has insight or awareness of one's strengths and weaknesses. And syempre, mayroon silang good sense of humor. Mature people know themselves and therefore hindi nila kailangan na mag-attribute to their own mistakes and weaknesses to others. Nakikita nila na yung sarili nila ng very objective and they are able to perceive incongruities and absurdities in life and hindi nila kailangan um, mag to pretend and put an act in their actions. Pero honest nila ganun. So, yung last is yung unifying principle of life. Ito yung mga tao na may sense of purpose, belief, or goal in life. Ito yung final criterion para parang ma-meet natin yung pagiging mature, pagkakaroon ng mature personality. Ayun. Yung, yung mga tao dito is meron ng clear vision of their purpose of their life. So, personality naman. According kay Gordon Allport, yung personality is the dynamic organization within the individual of those psychophysical systems that determine his unique adjustments to his environment. Pero, ito yung parang bago pa yun. After nun, pinalitan na yung last phrase na that determine his characteristic and behavior. Ano nga ba yung personal disposition? Personal disposition, as Allport defined, it is a generalized neuropsychic structure peculiar to the individual with the capacity to handle many stimuli, functionally equivalent, and to initiate and guide consistent forms of adaptive and stylistic behavior. Yung personal dispositions are individual. Common traits are shared by several people. Hinati ito ni Gordon Allport. Yung personal disposition ay hinati ni Gordon Allport into three kinds, which are the cardinal disposition, central disposition, and secondary disposition. Yung cardinal disposition, these are the traits that dominate the personality, influencing almost everything a person does. It is a disposition for which a person is known and is present only in a small number of people. For example, ito yung mga trait na hindi kayang itago. Yung Mother Teresa's altruism, Don Juan, the Marquis de Sade, even Jesus Christ's greed. Ayun, yun naman yung mga um, trait na hindi natin matatawa and most of the people wala namang ganitong mga trait, 'di ba? So hindi ito very these are not very common. Second is yung central disposition. Ito yung mga um, traits that makes up our personality. And usually, meron tayong 5 or 10 central traits. For example, being friendly, loyal, kind, agreeable, ganun. And Allport describes central disposition na ito yung mga maililista natin in an accurate letter of recommendation written by someone who knew the person quite well. Ito, yun nga, yung mga sinabi ko, friendly, loyal, agreeable, responsible, mga ganun. And lastly is the secondary disposition. Ito yung mga responses to particular stimuli which may occur on rare occasions. Rare occasions, sabi dito. So, these are not really considered important dispositions. For example, yung mga habits natin, yung interest natin, and preferences. Ito yung the least characteristic and the least reliable na ano natin. For example nito is yung ibang mga tao, 'di ba? They can only sleep on the left side of the bed. Yung iba naman is um yung kulambo, yung nung tita ni Gilido. Hindi siya nakakatulog pag wala yung kulambo sa paa niya. Ganun, yung mga secondary disposition. And hindi ito quite obvious. Pero that it still appear on some rare occasions, rare siya na habits natin. So, ayun. To further discuss the traits help explain the consistencies that we find in personality. Although minsan yung mga traits are highly interdependent and often consistent, this is not always and necessarily the case. Hindi rin ito directly observable but must be inferred. Yun nga, mahirap silang i-classify. And there are individual and common traits. Yung individual traits, ito yung parang personal disposition natin. Sinabi ka kanina, ito ay possessed by a person. While yung common traits are shared by a group of people. And a trait, ito yung combination of 2 or more habits. Pero ang habits do not have the capacity to dominate traits, but traits may force a creation of new habits. For example, yung trait mo is quiet ka. Diba? Pag quiet ka, what do you think as a possible habit mo? Diba magbasa? Ayun. So, these new habits then must be compatible to the trait. Ayun nga. Yung pagiging quiet mo and yung pagkakaroon mo ng habit to read books is very compatible nga naman. So, traits may be regarded as stylistic and dynamic. Stylistic trait, ito yung, di ba, tells how one is to behave, where yung dynamic trait tells why one behaves the way one does. Ayun. So, yung stylistic trait, ito yung nagsasabi kung paano nagbe-behave yung isang tao. And yung dynamic trait is kung bakit naman nagbe-behave yung tao. Yun. So, next, a theory of motivation. Ito, a useful theory of personality rests on the assumption that people not only react to their environment but also shape their environment and cause it to react to them. Nasabi nga kanina na yung pagiging proactive natin, na yun yung nagmo-motivate sa atin. para mag-react sa environment natin to have a full control of our life or the situation. And personality is a growing system, allowing new elements to constantly enter into and change the person. Yun nga, continuum nga yung motivation natin with is the personality. Nagkakos sa personality na mag-grow and afterwards, pwede tayong magbago because of that, right? And
Allport used the term proprium to mean the main source of learning about the self and finding the personality. Proprium refers to the aspects of personality which together make for seem singularly one's own. These aspects taken together make for the individuality. So yung proprium, it means self-seeking. We tend to seek our true self and personalities. And also, by awareness, it also contributes to lifelong development. So, kapag may aware tayo sa self natin, magkakaroon tayo ng lifelong development sa ating personalities. It also develops through maturity and learning. So, what do we mean by learning? It also means that through experiences in life, we tend to seek our true self and yung ating mga personalities na hindi pa natin hahanap in the past. So, also another example is yung mga certain events. Ito din yung bumubuo sa mga personalities natin as a person. So, yung proprium din, it is also the sense of self. Proprium includes all the collective aspects of an individual's personality that are uniquely his or her own. These are what make a person unique and give one some inward unity. So the proprium is also develops through maturity and learning. So what do we mean by maturity and learning? Through experiences in life and also certain events. Ito yung mga bumubuo sa personality ng isang tao. So every individual personality are unique. So Allport found that learning is an important mode of motivation. And self-actualization helps one to advance toward his or her goals. So kapag may self-actualization kasi tayo, nakikita natin or na-manifest natin yung mga weaknesses, our strengths. So, mas alam natin kung ano yung patutunguhan ng mga ginagawa natin and we can reach our goals in life. So, people learn to do things and create a personality because of mechanical determinism, self-actualization, becoming even if they appear to be contradictory. Becoming means an advance towards goals. One learns how to have a personality through differentiation and integration. So, personality development. Allport believed that at birth, an individual lacks unique distinctiveness that will make up his or her personality. The formation of personality develops with growth and maturation. Crucial to personality development is the role played by functional autonomy. This controversial principle states that although one set of circumstances may originally explain the existence of a motive, that motive can exist in an adult independent of those circumstances. So, kailangan para ma-form yung personality na yon, we need to develop growth and maturation. Kasi yung bata pa tayo, we lack the distinctiveness na mabuo yung personality natin. So, through, sabi nga natin nung last slide, yung maturity and learning, kailangan yun para mabuo yung personality. Hence, an earlier motive that started as a means can later on become an end to itself. This causes important changes between infancy and adulthood. The self, which Allport called proprium, is likewise essential in the development of personality. So yung proprium, very important siya para mabuo yung personality or masik natin yung true personality ng isang tao. Elements in traits. Traits have the capacity to motivate, inhibit, or select appropriate human behavior. Mutually interdependent traits are the main elements in behavior. Third, traits can help the consistencies that we find in personality. Although traits are highly interdependent and often consistent, this is not always and necessarily the case. Fourth, traits are not directly observable but must be inferred. Traits are difficult to classify. Fifth, a trait begins with a neuropsychic system. Individual traits are possessed by a person. So, only one person possess this trait, while common traits are shared by a group of people. So, mas maraming tao ang meron ng ganitong trait. Allport considered adding habits to individual traits. So, it suggests a shift in terms because no one fully understood the sharp difference between my conceptions of common individual trait. He said, Number 7, a trait is a combination of two or more habits. So, sa trait daw, nakapaloob na doon yung dalawa or mas marami pang habits ng isang tao. Habits do not have the capacity to dominate traits, but traits may force the creation of new habits. Yung traits daw, yun yung nagpo-force sa isang tao na mag-create pa ng mas maraming habits. These new habits then must be compatible to the trait. Traits may be regarded as stylistic and dynamic. Stylistic trait tells how one is to behave, while dynamic trait tells why one behaves the way one does. The first gives style, while the second gives motivating factors. So for example, sa stylistic trait, ang isang tao ay nagdadamit because she wants to keep her body warm, while yung dynamic trait, for example niyan is the way one dress because it is her way to express herself. It is the way that is unique to herself. Traits may drive as well as direct. They may push as well as they take the path. Traits guide and initiate the behavior. So yung traits, yun ang nag-guide and nagpupush para gawin ng isang tao yung isang behavior. So, pang 9, traits have strong connotation of contemporaneity or a state of being and nowness of things. Traits do not exist directly from the past. So, hindi siya nag-exist in the past. Like yung kay Sigmund Freud na nakabatay sa past yung behavior ng isang tao. Dito kay Gordon Allport, traits ay hindi nag-e-exist sa past ng isang tao. Approaches in studying personality. Agiograph method is the intensive study of a simple case. It emphasizes the uniqueness of the individual. So, sa agiograph method, simple case lang yung focus ng study. And it emphasizes yung uniqueness ng isang individual o tao. So, kapag nomothetic method, studies a group of individuals and analyzes them. Allport emphasized common traits or generalized patterns that could be used to make comparisons among groups of people. So, sa nomothetic method, group of individuals yung ina-analyze na sabay-sabay. And it emphasizes yung common traits or generalized patterns na makikita sa group of people. Functional autonomy represents the present goal of interests and tendencies
that initiates and sustains current behavior. It means a strong inclination for a motive system to develop independently of the primary drive originated in an action. So sa functional autonomy, it is also the ability of a person to perform independently from the various tasks required in daily life. So it is not based on the past again, and yung mga present go of interest niya is yun yung nag-i-initiate na i-sustain yung palagian niyang ginagawa or behavior. So here na sa two types of functional autonomy. Preservative functional autonomy, a closed or almost closed system which continues primarily under its own power with little or no outside reinforcement. It is a self-sustaining circuit mechanism, gives consistency and coherence to personality. So kapag sinabi naman natin preservative functional autonomy, it also means that feedback mechanisms based from the neurological principles. So it is self-maintaining and it keeps the organism on track. Little or mas kaunti lang yung reinforcement niya para gawin yung behavior na yun. So for example, ang isang tao nag-smoke siya dahil sa teenage rebellion. And as time passed by, nung tumanda na siya, nag-i-smoke pa rin siya, pero hindi na yun yung motivation niya, hindi na yung teenage rebellion, kundi yung kailangan ng katawan niya. Parang yun na yung pattern ng behavior niya, hindi niya na mahinto kasi na-form na yung addiction, mga ganun yung preservative functional autonomy. So kapag appropriate functional autonomy naman, an open system which presupposes that the individual is constantly bombarded with stimuli, causes one to respond appropriately to life's challenges in order to progressively produce greater achievements. So, ang appropriate functional autonomy, it relates sa values, self-image, and lifestyle ng isang individual. So, it also enhances yung self-esteem or yung kumpiyansa niya sa sarili niya. So, for example, nung bata siya is napunish siya or napalo dahil sa pagiging selfish. So, nung naging adult siya, mas naging generous siya or mapagbigay sa ibang tao. Kasi, feeling niya mas acceptable yun na behavior kaysa noong bata siya, which is naging madamo siya sa ibang bata or ibang tao. Ganon yung appropriate functional autonomy. So we move on to right processes that are not functionally autonomous. Number 1 is biological drives, need for air, sleep, hunger, and elimination. Second, reflex action, eye blink, and knee jerk. Third, constitutional equipment, raw materials of physics, intelligence, and temperament. Fourth, habits. Fifth, primary enforcement, behavior that stops after the goal is gained. Number 6, infantilism and fixations, behavior due to repressed infantile motives in the Freudian sense, when and where this actually occur. So, ito yung psychosexual development ni Sigmund Freud. Number 7, some neuroses, those in which therapy by going backward traces the original causal behavior to create a cure. So, lastly, the sublimation. So, when we say sublimation, it is the socially unacceptable impulses or idealization, and it transform into socially acceptable actions or behavior. So, for example, galit ka, and then ibubuhos mo na lang yung galit mo sa mga mas functional pa na bagay katulad ng paglilinis or pagbabasa ng libro, pakikinig ng music, para doon mo na lang binubuhos yung, mo, yung emotions mo. Ganon yung sublimation. Two methods in which functional autonomy can be created in the personality pattern. Number one is quasi-mechanical. Functional autonomy may emerge in a gradual sense, from stimulus-object response or from the learning theory methods. Second is propitiate, the self-attempt to enhance itself. The self-image demands a continuation of ego involvement. Seven stages of personality development: bodily sense, awareness of bodily sensations and physiological systems. So, we develop our sense of smell, sense of taste, mga ganon. So, for example lang yun. And then yung second, self-identity, awareness of who am I, and the relationship with others. So, we tend to know our role in the society by playing with other kids. So, pakikisalamuhan natin sa ibang tao. Pagbubuo ng mga relationship that is for self-identity awareness. Maski nakilala natin yung sarili natin by socializing to others. So, third, self-esteem, exploration of his or her world. The tendency to assert oneself may occur as early as 2 years old. This state often takes the form of negativism. It is the fulfillment of a sense of pride. Adolescent to adulthood siya. Okay, the fourth is extensions of self. Concerned with the importance of possessions, experiences, deeper level of contact with things and people. So, dito sa extension of self, doon natin mas na-form yung relationship natin with others, like friends, loved ones. That is our extensions of self. So, fifth, self-image, awareness of social expectations. So, mas nagiging aware tayo sa kung ano yung image na ma-project natin sa outside world or outside society. Number 6 is self as rational coper, ability to find various solutions to problems. So, mas nagiging problem solver tayo, mas nag-iisip tayo kung paano yung mga solutions natin sa mga problema natin. That is self as rational coper. Number 7 is appropriate striving. Focuses on life goals and intentions like in adolescence. At this point, the person's hope, wishes, and aspirations are called intentions. So, it is also the final stage in the development of the proprium. Emerges or nasisimula siya from adolescence with the search for identity. So, it also includes experimentation. So, sa adolescence, nagkakaroon tayo ng mga relationship to others like puppy love. Nung high school tayo or nagkakaroon tayo ng experimentation for intimacy like kissing, hugging, or even sex. That's appropriate striving. The most important driving force of human being is not the past but what the person is doing at present for his or her future. However, not all individuals seem to guide the behavior in terms of rational principles. So, hindi lahat ng individual nag-guide yung behavior nila through rational principles. So, minsan nagiging mas matimbang yung feelings nila kaysa doon sa pag-iisip rationally. Allport ran counter to the current generally accepted practice of assuming that all behaviors have a continuum basis. For him, many aspects of life are not on a continuum, but what we do is not always a matter of degree, but one with a difference in kind. Where there appears to be a continuum, It is actually a continuum of symptoms and not processes. Appearances can be deceiving. Allport found great differences in the lives of people. A human being is not a continuum of another human being, but must be considered an entity of and by itself. Allport suggested a discontinuity between the child and adult motivational structure, which tension reduction, avoidance of pain, seeking pleasure in a biological model. Some infant behavior can be instinctive or reflexive. So, sinabi ni Allport na he also suggests na yung child and adult motivational structure is not connected. So, iba yung motivation mo nung bata ka. Iba din yung motivation mo nung motivational structure mo nung magiging adult ka. So, that's how it works. So, the adult personality operates from a matrix of organized and highly focused traits. The adult no longer derives power from organic, primitive sources, but from the functional autonomy motivating system. So, sabi nga dito, yung adult, it never longer derives from from organic or primitive sources, and mas nagfo-focus siya doon sa functional autonomy motivating system. Meron din silang highly focused na traits.
So, dumako naman tayo sa evaluation and sa critic sa jury ni Gordon Allport. So, in many ways, Allport jury is similar to existential humanistic juries, which state that human motives are not merely biological in nature. And yung mga tao raw ay future-oriented. So, it is more on teleological. And psychology should be socially relevant. And Allport based his theory of personality more on philosophical speculation and common sense than on scientific investigations. He never intended his theory to be completely new or comprehensive, but rather he was eclectic, wherein he carefully borrowed from older theories and recognized that his detractors could have important things to say, that yung consistent with his tolerant attitude. Allport acknowledged that his advisories may have been at least partially right. Despite its limitations as a useful theory, Allport's approach to personality is both is stimulating and enlightening, kasi simple lang yung words niya, na madali lang naman siyang intindihin. And the work of Allport has set a standard for clear thinking and precision that future theories would do well to emulate. And ito yung mga strengths niya. Allport believed that there is no relationship between early experiences and adult personality, na yung motivation rather sa present behavior is in the present, not in the past. Hindi tayo nagdidwell sa past. And Allport is generally considered a trait psychologist. Siya yung pinaka-first personality trait psychologist. He could be a forerunner of existential humanistic theories. And his greatest contribution is his concept of functional autonomy. However, meron ding weaknesses yung theory niya. First was yung he was criticized for being unscientific because of his adherence to the nomothetic and ideograph approaches in studying personality.
Second, he was criticized for his discontinuity of stages between animals and human beings, between child and adult, and between normal and abnormal. Yun nga, parang masyado niyang dinifferentiate yung ano, yung mga groups na ito, which is yung animals and human beings, ganun. Yung child and adult. Third was, he was also criticized for putting too much emphasis on the conscious mind at the expense of the unconscious. Yes, tama. Yung theory niya is nag-focus talaga siya sa conscious conscious mind natin, yung mga conscious motivations, ganun. Wherein yung ibang previous theories na pinag-aralan natin is more on unconscious unconscious mind. And Allport's view of humanity is more teleological than causal. Yun nga, teleological. More on futuristic talaga yung theory niya. Then, personality to some extent is influenced by past experiences. Pero, he makes some clear notion there that behaviors that make us humans are those that are motivated by our expectations of the future. Parang yun na, yung current self natin, yung iniisip talaga natin as yung for future natin. Hindi tayo nagdudwell sa past kasi nga meron tayong pakialam sa future natin. Meron tayong concern sa future natin, which is the success of our life. Then, the growth of personality always takes place within a social setting, but Allport places only moderate emphasis on social factors. Itong theory niya na ito, nag-focus siya sa uniqueness of individual talaga, and yung mga conscious motivations talaga. And Allport held an optimistic view of humanity, maintaining that people have at least limited freedom. So, ito pa. Early childhood experiences are of relatively minor importance. Hindi niya masyadong binigyan ng pansin yung early childhood. Sinabi niya dito na parang minor lang yung connection ng ating early childhood experiences sa behavior natin ngayong adult or ngayong sa present. And both differences and similarities among people are important, but individual differences and uniqueness receive far greater emphasis in Allport's psychology. Yun nga, psychology of the individual emphasizes the uniqueness of the individual. Yun lang. Though it is a limited theory and it only offers explanations to a fairly narrow scope of personality, namely certain kinds of motivations. Yun lang naman yung kanyang theory about sa motivation natin, about sa uniqueness ng tao. Then, Allport had a basically optimistic and hopeful view of human nature. He actually rejected the psychoanalytic and behavioral views of humanity kasi sinabi niya na very deterministic and mechanistic ito. So, yung theory ni Allport has set a standard for clear thinking and precision that future theorists would do well to emulate. And on generated research, Allport theory receives a moderate rating on criterion of falsifiability. Siyempre, low rating lang kasi hindi siya masyadong gumamit ng mga scientific methods. And as a guide for the practitioner, Allport's theory has moderate usefulness. On the final true criteria of a useful theory, ito yung theory niya is very useful talaga kasi precise yung language niya, and it is both internally consistent and parsimonious. So, the summary and the concept of functional autonomy made Allport the forerunner of existential humanistic theories. Again, yung theory niya, psychology of the individual, emphasize the uniqueness of the individual and the belief that human motives are not merely biological in nature but also future oriented. He stressed that conscious awareness of interaction rather than the unconscious level of mind. Nag-focus ito sa conscious mind natin rather than the unconscious level of the mind. And Allport believed that personality consists of biological as well as psychological structures, which he called personal disposition. And he distinguished between three personal dispositions, namely the cardinal, central, and secondary dispositions. And his notion of selfhood, which he called proprium, involves all aspects of personality that provide it a unique sense of unity. And Allport's concept of functional autonomy earned him a reputation as a humanist. He combined the humanism and theory in order to form personality. And also, gumamit siya ng nomothetic method to examine what people have in common. Kasi nga, individual psychology nga, di ba? Nomothetic or common, the method of individual traits. Ayun pala. I use the nomothetic to examine what people have in common. Ito yung sa people. And yung idiographic or morphogenic method, ito naman yung para sa individuals. And he believed that adult personality matures slowly through stages of development. Namely, first, the bodily sense, second, yung self-identity, third, yung self-esteem, fourth, self-extension, fifth, self-image, sixth, self as a rational copper, and seven, propriety striving. And Allport was not interested in animals, children, or neurotics. He was interested in healthy human adults who have the following characteristics of mature personality. First is yung self-extension. Second, warm human interaction. Emotional security and self-acceptance. Fourth, realistic perceptions wherein ito pagiging realistic natin. And 5, self-objectifications. We are aware of ourselves, our strengths and weaknesses. 6, a unifying philosophy of life wherein meron tayong clear view of our purpose of our life. And that's it. We are the reporters for the psychology of the individual for Gordon Allport. So, meron kaming konting quiz dito. Hopefully, ma-answeran ninyo. Sa inyo na lang yung mga sagot nyo. First was this. Throwback time. Ito. Mature people know themselves and therefore have no need to attribute their own mistakes and weaknesses to others. So, ano yung alam nyong sagot dito? Self-objectification. Ayun. And second, mature personalities are characterized by they have a capacity to love others in an intimate and compassionate manner. Self-relating. Answer, warm human interaction or warm relating of self to others. Next, give one characteristics of a mature personality and give a brief explanation. Huwag na yan, sa inyo na lang yan. Aralin nyo mabuti yung mga Ito, state what is being asked. Allport believed that adult personality matures slowly through 7 stages of proprium. Nabanggit kanina yan, yung bodily sense, And so on. Yung 7 na yun. Next, Allport, ay mali. It begins as one motive may continue one that is continuous even of but functionally autonomous from it. From the word functionally autonomous. So, ano yung answer dyan? Siyempre, functional autonomy. Next, which concept best describes Allport's view of personality? Siyempre, letter C, uniqueness. Second, more than any other personality theories, Gordon Allport emphasized the B, the uniqueness of an individual. Next, which of the following is a method used by Gordon Allport to gather data on a single individual? Ano? Letter A, morphogenic method or ideograph method. Ayan. Next, when Allport was a young man, he spent a year teaching in Europe. On his trip way home, he visited his brother Fayette and had a memorable meeting with sino? Yung kay A, si Freud. Yung ano yan, encounter niyan sa bata na may dirt phobia. Pero siya para yun. Kasi lumaki siya in a house na parang hospital kasi yung physician na papa niya ginawang half clinic yung bahay nila and doon siya lumaki. So parang nasanay siya na malinis yung surrounding niya, ganun. So ayun. Next, Gordon Allport advocate blank an approach to theory building. Ano? Letter C, eclectic. Kasi nag-base siya sa mga theory na nauna sa kanya. Next, Allport criticized all the theories of personality for
B.
B.
B, diba? Rejecting,
Kung na lang. Oo.
ano ba? B, rejecting nomothetic methods of psychological research.
Next, which of the following statement is a general assumption required to understand Gordon Allport's conception of the psychologically mature personality? Anong sagot? C. Mature people are able to consciously act on their environment para magkaroon sila ng control na sa situation or sa buhay nila. Next, according to Gordon Allport, psychologically mature people are characterized by A. Proactive behavior. Yan, active behavior. To Allport, a broad, comprehensive theory is preferable to a narrow, specific theory even if it does not generate as many testable hypotheses. This is referred to as the blank approach to theory building. Siyempre, E. Ay.
Anong answer?
Ayan. Thank you for participating and for listening. That's all for our theory. Psychology of the individual theory. Thank you.